The smell of raw garlic still makes my hand shake, not from fear anymore, but from memory. Every night at exactly 7:30, I sit at this same table, cut one clove into thin slivers, and swallow them whole with a glass of well water. My doctor stopped calling it dangerous 3 years ago. He stopped calling it anything at all. I've outlived two of my doctors doing this. I'm 98 years old and I eat raw garlic every single night. It keeps me alive. The kitchen timer just went off. It's time. You see this plate? Same one I've used for 15 years. White ceramic, small chip on the rim from when my grandson dropped it in 2009. The garlic sits in the center, naked and honest. No seasoning, no bread to chase it down. Just me and this ancient bulb that grows in dirt. Most people think I'm crazy. My own daughter thinks I've lost my mind. Mother, she says every time she visits, you're going to burn a hole in your stomach. She doesn't understand. Nobody does. But I didn't always understand either. 15 years ago, I was dying. Not the slow, peaceful dying that people talk about when they're being polite. The real kind. The kind where your body starts shutting down room by room, and you can feel each door closing behind you. I weighed 93 pounds soaking wet. My skin was the color of old newspaper. I couldn't keep food down for more than 20 minutes without it coming back up, sour and burning. Dr. Patterson had me on 12 different medications. 12. I needed a pill organizer the size of a toolbox just to keep track of them all. The blue ones for my heart, the white ones for my blood pressure, the yellow capsules for my stomach, the tiny pink tablets that made my hands stop trembling. Every morning was like preparing for battle. I'd line them all up on this same table, same plate, and swallow them down with lukewarm coffee. Then I'd wait. Wait for the nausea to pass. Wait for the dizziness to stop. Wait for whatever small mercy the chemicals might grant me that day. My daughter Sarah would come by every afternoon around 2 o'clock. She'd find me in my bedroom, curtains drawn, lying on top of the covers, in the same house dress I'd worn for 3 days straight. Mom, you need to eat something, she'd say, standing in the doorway like she was afraid to come closer, afraid to see how much smaller I'd gotten since yesterday. I'd try, Lord knows I tried. She'd bring me soup from the diner on 5th Street, the kind with big chunks of chicken and soft carrots. It smelled like comfort, like the kind of meal that should heal you from the inside out. But 30 minutes later, it would all come back up, every last drop. Sarah would hold my hair back and rub circles on my back while I retched into the old ice cream bucket we kept beside my bed. Neither of us said what we were both thinking, that this was how it was going to end, that I was going to waste away in that bedroom, getting smaller and smaller until there was nothing left but bones and regret. The doctors had more tests, more medications, more theories about what might work. But I could see it in their eyes. They were just buying time for Sarah to get used to the idea of being an orphan at 57, buying time for me to make peace with whatever I'd left undone. Most people walk away when stories get this heavy. The fact that you're still listening, that means something. Hit subscribe. I've got more to tell. October 15th, 2009. I remember the date because it was the day everything changed. Sarah had been helping me reorganize the kitchen cabinets, trying to make things easier for me to reach. We were going through the pantry, throwing away expired cans and boxes of cereal that had been there since my husband passed in 2003. That's when I found it. A small brown paper bag, wrinkled and forgotten, pushed way back behind the flour canister. I pulled it out, and the bottom nearly gave way. Inside were 6 bulbs of garlic. Not the kind you buy at the grocery store in those neat little mesh bags. These were different, bigger, heavier. The papery skin was more purple than white, and when I held them up to the light, I could see the individual cloves pressing against their husks like baby birds ready to hatch. I knew exactly where they'd come from. Mrs. Chen, my neighbor 3 houses down. She'd given them to me the summer before my husband died. She grew them in her backyard, in raised beds she'd built with her own hands when she was 82 years old. Agnes, she'd said in her careful English, pressing the bag into my palms, these are medicine, better than medicine. You eat 1 piece every night, raw, no cooking. I thanked her and put them away, meaning to try them eventually, but life got complicated. Harold got sicker. The doctors got busier. The pills got more numerous. I forgot about Mrs. Chen's garlic until that October afternoon when I was dying in my own kitchen, surrounded by expired groceries and good intentions. Sarah was in the living room, folding my old throw blankets into neat squares. I could hear her humming, the way she did when she was trying not to cry. I stood there holding those bulbs, feeling their weight in my palms. They still felt alive. After 6 years in my pantry, they still felt like they had something to give. That night, after Sarah went home, I sat at this table and separated 1 clove from the largest bulb. It was firm under my fingers, the skin crackling as I peeled it away. The smell hit me immediately, sharp, clean, powerful, like the earth right after rain, but concentrated, distilled. I cut it into thin slivers with my old paring knife, the one with the loose handle that Harold always meant to fix. My hands were shaking so badly that I nearly cut myself twice. The pieces lay there on my plate like little white crescents, raw and unforgiving, and nothing like any medicine I'd ever taken. I picked up the first sliver. It was smaller than my pinky nail, but it felt enormous in my mouth. The taste exploded across my tongue. Fire and earth and something ancient, something that had been growing in dirt for months, pulling minerals and strength from the ground. It burned going down, but it was a clean burn, a purposeful burn. Not like the medications that made everything in my body feel artificial and wrong. I ate all of it, every sliver. Then I sat there waiting for something terrible to happen, for my stomach to revolt, for the burning to get worse, for my body to reject this new intrusion the way it rejected everything else. But nothing happened, nothing except a warmth that started in my chest and spread outward like sunlight. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was disappearing. I read something that changed everything. It said patience after 60 is the fastest way to die forgotten. My doctor said wait. I stopped waiting. That guide is in the description below. The next morning I woke up at 6:30. I hadn't seen 6:30 from the awake side in over a year. Usually I'd sleep until noon, then drag myself to the bathroom and back to bed, exhausted from the journey. But that morning I was awake, really awake. Not the groggy, medicated half consciousness I'd grown used to. My mind was clear, sharp. I could remember what I dreamed about. I could remember what day it was without looking at the calendar. I went to the kitchen and made myself 2 scrambled eggs, real eggs, not the protein powder Sarah had been mixing into everything. I ate them slowly, waiting for the familiar churning in my stomach, the warning signs that everything was about to come back up. But they stayed down. Every bite stayed down. That evening I cut another clove of garlic. This time my hands didn't shake. This time I knew what to expect. The burning, the warmth, the strange sense of something powerful taking root in my body. I started keeping a journal. Nothing fancy, just a composition book like the ones kids use in school. Every morning I'd write down how I felt, what I ate, whether I kept it down. The first week was remarkable. The second week was miraculous. By the third week, I'd gained 4 pounds. Dr. Patterson noticed the difference at my next appointment. Agnes, you look. He paused, studying my face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. You look better, much better. Are you taking your medications as prescribed? I told him yes, which wasn't exactly a lie. I was taking them. I just wasn't relying on them anymore. He ran his usual tests. Blood pressure, weight, reflexes. Everything was improving. Not just stable, but actually getting better. Whatever you're doing, he said, making notes in my chart, keep doing it. I didn't tell him about the garlic. Not yet. I needed to be sure. I needed more time to understand what was happening to my body, because something was happening, something the pills had never been able to do. I was getting stronger, not just physically, but mentally. The fog that had settled over my thoughts was lifting. I could remember entire conversations. I could read for more than 10 minutes without getting tired. I could walk to the mailbox without getting winded. Sarah noticed too. She'd come for her afternoon visits and find me in the kitchen actually cooking. Simple things at first. Soup from scratch. Biscuits from a recipe I'd memorized 40 years ago. Then more complicated meals. Pot roast with vegetables. Apple pie with a lattice crust. Things that required planning, timing, attention. Mom, what's gotten into you? She asked one Tuesday, finding me scrubbing the kitchen floor on my hands and knees. You haven't had this much energy in years. I told her I was feeling better. I told her the medications were finally working. Both of these things were true, just not in the way she thought. The garlic was working better than anything Dr. Patterson had ever prescribed. Every night, 7:30, 1 clove cut into slivers. I never missed a night. Not when I had the flu that winter. Not when Sarah's family came for Christmas and the house was full of chaos. Not when I was so tired I could barely keep my eyes open. The garlic became my anchor, my ritual, my promise to myself that I wasn't giving up. By my 95th birthday, I felt better than I had at 85. By 96, I was outlasting people 20 years younger at the church potluck dinners. At 97, I was volunteering at the library, reshelving books and helping kids with their homework. My doctor was baffled. Agnes, I've never seen anything like this, he said, looking at my latest blood work. Your inflammation markers are lower than some of my patients in their 60s. Your heart is strong. Your blood pressure is perfect. If I didn't know better, I'd say you were getting younger. That's when I told him about Mrs. Chen's garlic, about the nightly ritual that had become as natural as breathing, about how raw garlic had saved my life when all his pills couldn't. He was quiet for a long time. Then he leaned back in his chair and shook his head. Agnes, I can't recommend this to my other patients. Raw garlic can cause stomach ulcers, digestive problems, interact with blood thinners. Doctor, I said, with all due respect, your medications were killing me. The garlic brought me back to life. He couldn't argue with the results. My chart was right there in front of him. 3 years of steady improvement. 3 years of defying every prediction he'd made about my declining health. He stopped fighting me about it after that. He stopped calling it dangerous. He just accepted that somehow this old woman had found something that worked better than modern medicine. And maybe, just maybe, he didn't understand everything there was to know about healing. I started researching, not on the internet, which still confuses me, but in books, real books with pages and spines, and that dusty smell that makes you trust what's written inside. I learned that garlic has been medicine for thousands of years. The Egyptians gave it to their pyramid builders for strength. The Romans fed it to their soldiers before battle. During World War I, they used garlic juice to treat infected wounds when they ran out of antibiotics. People have known about garlic's power for centuries. We just forgot. We got distracted by pills and procedures and forgot that sometimes the best medicine grows in the ground. Mrs. Chen knew. She'd grown up in a place where food and medicine were the same thing, where eating the right foods at the right time could prevent illness, cure disease, extend life. She tried to share that knowledge with me, and I almost missed it, almost let it rot in my pantry while I poisoned myself with chemicals. Everything I learned about patience, about sacrifice, about trust, it's all in something called the 60-year rule. 9 rules that reverse after 60. I wish someone had given me this 20 years ago. The link is right below this video. Now I'm 98. I still eat my garlic every night at 7:30. I still use the same plate, the same knife, the same glass of well water. Dr. Patterson retired 2 years ago, but before he left, he referred me to a younger doctor, Dr. Rodriguez. She's in her 30s, fresh out of medical school, full of new ideas and old certainties. Our first appointment was interesting. Mrs. Moore, I've reviewed your file, and I have to say I'm concerned about your garlic consumption. Raw garlic can be very hard on the digestive system, especially for someone your age. I'd like to discuss some alternatives. I let her talk. I let her explain all the reasons why what I was doing couldn't possibly be working. Then I stood up from the examination table, did 10 jumping jacks, and sat back down. Doctor, I said, I'm 98 years old. I can do jumping jacks. I can walk 3 miles without getting winded. I can read for 4 hours straight without my eyes getting tired. I have more energy now than I had 15 years ago. Are you really going to tell me to stop? She ran every test she could think of: blood work, heart monitoring, bone density scans, cognitive assessments. Everything came back perfect, better than perfect. At 98, my body was functioning like someone 30 years younger. I don't understand it, she admitted. Nothing in my medical training explains these results. By all conventional wisdom, you should be. She trailed off, not wanting to finish that sentence. I should be dead, I said. I know, I was getting close. Then I found something that worked. She asked me to write down exactly what I do, the timing, the preparation, the amount. She wanted to study it, maybe recommend it to other patients who weren't responding to traditional treatments. I wrote it all down on a piece of paper from her prescription pad. 1 clove of raw garlic, sliced thin, consumed at 7:30 p.m. every night. No exceptions. That's it? She asked. That's it. She kept that piece of paper. I saw her tuck it into my file, right behind all the blood work that showed impossible results. Maybe she'll remember it someday when she has a patient who's given up hope. Maybe she'll think of the old woman who ate garlic and lived to tell about it. I know what you're thinking. This is too simple, too good to be true. There must be more to it than just raw garlic every night. There isn't. That's the beauty of it. That's the part that frustrated every doctor I've ever told this story to. They want complex explanations, multiple factors, controlled studies with hundreds of participants. They can't accept that sometimes the most powerful medicine is also the most basic. I'm not saying garlic will cure everything. I'm not saying it will work for everyone the way it worked for me. I'm just telling you what happened, what's still happening. Every night at 7:30, I honor the promise I made to myself 15 years ago. The promise to keep fighting, keep trying, keep looking for answers even when the experts had given up. Tonight will be no different. In about 20 minutes, I'll cut a fresh clove into thin slivers. I'll swallow them with well water and feel that familiar burn spreading through my chest. I'll feel alive, really alive. At 98 years old, in a world that worships youth and fears aging, I am living proof that getting older doesn't have to mean getting weaker. Sometimes it means getting wiser. Sometimes it means learning to listen to your body instead of the voices telling you what's possible and what isn't. Sometimes it means trusting a neighbor's gift, even when it's been sitting in your pantry for 6 years. Mrs. Chen is gone now. She passed peacefully in her sleep 3 years ago at the age of 97. But her garlic is still growing in my backyard. I planted those original bulbs after she died, and now I have my own little garden. Purple-topped bulbs that grow strong in the Missouri soil, ready to become medicine for anyone brave enough to try. I save some every year. If you lived next door, I'd give you a bag and tell you the same thing Mrs. Chen told me. These are medicine, better than medicine. You eat one piece every night, raw, no cooking. But you probably don't live next door. You probably live somewhere far from here, listening to an old woman's voice tell an impossible story about garlic and stubbornness and refusing to die quietly. That's okay. The story is the medicine, too. The story is proof that sometimes the best answers come from the most unexpected places. That sometimes wisdom looks like foolishness until you're desperate enough to try it. I'm 98 years old. I eat raw garlic every night. My doctor gave up arguing. And I'm still here, still strong, still grateful for Mrs. Chen's paper bag and the miracle it contained. Still cutting thin slivers at 7:30, keeping a promise I made to myself when I thought it was too late for promises. It's never too late. Remember that. It's never too late to try something different, something simple, something that grows in the ground and asks nothing of you except consistency and faith. The timer just went off again. Time for tonight's medicine. Time to keep living.